Wario World has always been a bit of a disappointment to me. The gameplay and overall experience isn't bad, it has some memorable boss fights, and it has an incredible soundtrack to top it all off, but it's incredibly short. And with only 8 levels, the flaws of each level really tend to stand out. I would call it a solid week-long blockbuster rental or a decent Nintendo Switch Online candidate, but that's about it. Definitely not something I would ever recommend paying full retail price for. So that's why today we'll be mastering the Retro Achievement set to see if that can breathe some new life into this game. There are a total of 81 achievements in this set, and naturally the standard 100% completion for beating every level and boss, collecting every red diamond, finding all of the treasures, obtaining every statue piece, and rescuing every spriteling will make up a little over half of the Retro Achievement set. But like always, we're going to focus more so on the new challenges the set brings forth, how to solve them, and if the structure makes the game feel better or worse overall. Which means that we'll start by discussing the set's One Missable Achievement, because the number of spritelings that you save impacts the ending screen, since they help you rebuild your castle. The more you rescue, the better the ending. There are 6 possible ending screens, and the One Missable Achievement in this set is for getting the worst possible ending, by saving only a single spriteling, the one that you're forced to save in the Greenhorn Forest. And as you might imagine, being told not to collect things in a game filled with collectibles is a bit counterintuitive. So while the achievement itself makes sense as to why it's included, and I understand the author's vision, in this particular case it does feel like artificial padding. Not a big deal because the achievement itself is still really easy. Plus the set only gets much better from here on out. For bosses, each level has 2 different achievements, one for beating the boss normally, and one for beating it without taking any damage. And as daunting as that may sound, all of them were actually pretty reasonable. The bosses are normally pretty easy anyways, so Damageless just means you need to take a moment of time to learn and understand their attack patterns. None of these battles ever felt unfair, and many have cheat strats to them as well. Using the very first boss as an example, the key to dodging his fast as attacks is to just stand near the ledge and jump over him so he falls off and takes damage. Another Retro Achievement addition is the Force Challenge, which requires you to pile drive an enemy from a specific height in each level. These are by far my personal favorite achievement types from the set, and it was fun trying to envision the entire level trying to figure out the highest points you can jump from. Seeing the number climb up is so satisfying that it almost makes you wish that this was an actual metric that the base game would track in each level. But moving on, you have one final achievement type in each level, the Unithorn challenges. When you fall out of bounds, you'll have to escape from the Unithorn's lair by finding a spring in a box. But for the achievement, you have to enter, break open every single crate, and then escape without losing any coins. And no, you can't just enter with 0 coins. And anybody who's played this game before will remember that these segments are very much designed to punish you for falling in by making it really easy to lose coins here. What I wish I knew much earlier was how the bombs worked. If there are no active bombs, then the first one you spawn will temporarily spook the Unithorns. Additionally, they're not going to attack you if you're holding the bomb. However, if a bomb is active and you spawn a second one, they won't be scared. So for the last few levels, you can make these much easier by spawning a bomb, knocking it into the water, and then running and spawning another one so that they're constantly in a state of being spooked. But that's still much easier said than done, because the platforming gets pretty precise in the final few levels, especially as the walkways get increasingly narrow. So between these challenges being the toughest ones overall, and there being achievements for collecting coins, you may want to consider saving these for the very end. But moving on to level 2, this level is actually one of the best places to rack up both KOs and coins for their achievements. These 2 spawners near the start will pump out a ton of weak enemies, and once they run out, you can enter and exit the Unithorn's lair to respawn them. And then once you defeat the boss of the level, all of those KOs will turn into a bunch of bonus coins. For the level itself, the treasures are a bit more scattered this time around, but the spritelings are still easy to find, and both the red diamonds and boss were actually a bit easier than level 1. For the boss, just repeatedly get your 3 hits in and then run away. The Force Challenge took a bit of guesswork, but not too many guesses overall. And for the Unithorn lair, just like level 1, you only have 12 boxes, and still plenty of room to navigate around. And after that, we're on to the first world boss, Dinomighty. Surprisingly enough, the world bosses themselves don't have any damageless achievements tied to them, so just defeat them like normal. And then for this one, you can just throw the column at the legs for both an easy hit and a bunch of easy coins. Moving on to World 2, Horror Manor was pretty easy to figure out the Force Challenge on, and there's actually more than one spot you can achieve it at. The overall visibility of the level itself also makes the collectibles really easy to find, and the boss can be cheesed by throwing the torches. You can even hang onto the torch to easily avoid the beam attacks, which just leaves Unithorn Challenge 3. This time you have 16 boxes, but the paths still aren't too narrow yet, so it's still easy enough for now. So after wrapping everything up here, World 2-2 Wonky Circus has an exclusive achievement to it by knocking down all the pins for a prize. It's incredibly easy though, and the spotlight indicates where you'll be aiming. For many players, this may be the first level where you have to do a second run-through to find all the treasures, but it's also home to the best Force Challenge in the entire game. You only need 67, but you can go way higher than that. Break open this block here, but don't enter it yet. Climb up the ladder, defeat the snake, and pile drive either it or the snake charmer all the way down to the bottom for an easy 90+. And then this boss actually has the easiest damageless run yet. The big bomb can't hurt you in the corner, and if you're bad at grabbing the globes, just throw the boss across the stage and then instead he'll come back to you. And then Unithorn Challenge 4 is what I would consider to be the last easy one. It's a little bit more narrow, but you're back down to 12 boxes and it's relatively uniform in design. Then the World 2 boss is straightforward enough because once again there's no Damageless requirement, and it's a fun fight. So we're halfway done, but now we're on my least favorite level in the entire game by far, Shivering Mountains. Maybe it's just me, but this level feels so boring and tedious to navigate, and some of the collectibles are in spots that are a real pain to backtrack to if you miss it, like the ones on the ice slides. It feels way too slow paced compared to the rest of the game in my opinion, but at least Sub-Area 4 is a solid coin farming spot if you need it, since falling off will respawn all the coins. The Force challenge is easy enough to figure out, and while this level's boss is also the hardest Damageless challenge in my opinion, it's still not impossibly hard. Just make sure to not get frozen by the wind or else whatever this thing is will likely charge you before you can break free, and then you have to slog all the way through the level again to reattempt the battle. And then, as I've warned, this is where the Unithorn challenges really begin to spike in difficulty. Remember the bomb tricks mentioned earlier, and best of luck because there's 19 boxes this time around. And with this challenge completed, next up is Beanstalk Way, which is probably the level you'll be backtracking in the most to obtain all the collectibles in. But despite that, the overall level design and pacing is still much better than the previous level. The Force challenge location felt immediately obvious, and the boss is a fun one while not really being that much harder Damageless once you get a grasp on the jump timing. But if you miss the jump, you'll probably be stuck in the web and take a hit. But while most of the level was smooth sailing, the Unithorn challenge took me numerous attempts. There are 14 boxes, and the fact that I beat it while still not really understanding how the bomb mechanics worked yet is honestly surprising to me. And then after wrapping this up, you had the best boss fight in the game, and then we're on to the final world. And to my surprise, nearly every aspect of Mirror Manor was relatively simple. The collectibles were all really easy to find and didn't require any reruns on my end, just some thorough exploration. Then the Force challenge is right by an enemy spawner, and the boss is really easy to beat Damageless so long as you can follow the cup that he's hiding in. But all that talk about this level being easy immediately goes out the window because this Unithorn challenge is brutal. This is where I finally learned about all the bomb mechanics, but that alone isn't enough to get you through, because the platforming is incredibly precise, and there are 18 boxes this time around. So you just gotta get good. With that challenge done, we're on to the final level, Pecan Sands. It did require more than one run for me to find all the collectibles. But an important note here is that sub-level 8 requires an incredibly long platforming sequence to reach the end, and it contains both a red diamond and a spriteling. So anyone playing this with retro achievements may want to skip this area entirely until after your bad ending run, because you likely don't want to run through this entire section a second time. The Sandworm boss from level 2 also makes a return appearance in this level. And while the second encounter is normally completely optional, defeating him here will net you a retro achievement. The boss is a bit of a challenge to beat Damageless, and it's a bigger pain to climb back up to, but you can rush it a bit by grabbing and throwing the statues before it ever really gets a chance to attack. This is also the one level where the Force challenge may actually annoy you, because visually it's hard to find a spot to jump from, and once you finally find it, you may accidentally end up picking just the wrong angle to jump out from, and then you have to climb all the way back up to near the top again. But of course that pales in comparison to the final Unithorn challenge. There are 14 boxes, very awkward and narrow passages, and a lot of room for error. Even with bomb strats, this one took several dozen attempts from me. But eventually, I finally pulled it off. After celebrating the victory of being done with the Unithorn challenges, we have the very fun World 4 boss, and then we're on to the final boss, which does have a Damageless achievement. And the best way to describe the Damageless battle is, it's simultaneously easy and hard. It's not too hard to figure out the attack patterns and dodge them, but this boss has 8 hit points as opposed to 5, so it's a much longer battle compared to everything else so far, making it easier for you to lose focus and slip up. To deal damage, you have to free 5 Spritelings before throwing or pile driving the jewel. Rinse and repeat. The first attack is designed to trap Wario. After firing several beams, the next attack will depend on how much distance there is between the lines. If it's a wide range, then the boss will use a fire attack, but if it's a short range, then the jewel will use a shockwave attack instead. And I found the shockwave to be much easier to dodge, so I deliberately created the narrow walls instead. And lastly, in some cases you can actually dash past the beams to continue rescuing the Spritelings, but do so at your own risk if you're doing a Damageless run. I minimize my risk personally, so with enough patience and attrition, the final Damageless boss run has been completed. And then the routing you chose determines what loose ends you have to tie up. In my case, since I did the bad ending first, I ran back to the A main levels and grabbed all the Spritelings before beating the boss a second time. And now that we've gotten the best ending, our journey is... There's actually one final achievement. Wario World has an iconic pause screen, but not for a good reason. Chances are, you think that this is just a several second song on repeat, but it's actually much longer than you might think. There is an actual end to the song. If you leave the pause screen open for approximately 50 minutes and 39 seconds, Wario will apologize, marking the true end to the song. And encountering this Easter egg is the final achievement. There is no way that I'm going to sit in front of my TV doing nothing for that long, so I just turned the volume down, let my recording continue, and then left to go cook dinner.
Sorry.
Some people are mad that this is an achievement, but I think it's hilarious. So with that, our journey is complete, and we can reward ourselves by enjoying the GBA Link Cable games. So for the set overall, it absolutely achieved its goal of breathing new life into an otherwise one-and-done game. I'm glad I took on the set and have no regrets even through the toughest of challenges. At the end of the day, the Unithorn layer challenges are primarily skill-based, so it was satisfying to improve and eventually overcome it. On a final and semi-related note, I recently played through a hack called Super Mario Sunshine Arcade 2, which is a series of linear levels. The sub-area platforming in Wario World makes good use of the game's mechanics, and because of that I think that this game would actually be a really good candidate for a similar linear levels hack, and I'd play it in a heartbeat if it ever existed. But for now, with another game mastered, I hope you all have a wonderful day.